Welcome to the New York Academy of Arts Faculty Exhibition. This one is called In the Studio, and it shows the remarkable range of talent and skill and inspiration that is resident within the faculty here at the school.
People come to the Academy for many reasons, including New York City and our facilities, but more than anything, it's because of our faculty. They are the most remarkable painting instructors, sculpture instructors, printmaking instructors, and drawing instructors that you'll find anywhere in the world.
Nothing explains what we do like the work of the faculty.
Absolutely. It's inspiring every day.
So Peter, let's start with this grouping. What I love about this is we've got printmaking, bas-relief, and painting.
Yeah, and all three of these artists, John Jacobs Meyer, Jianan Wu, and Dick Liu, are just masters of their discipline. And it's one of the things that makes John so extraordinary is that he's actually using something from our anatomical collection to make his print. And then instead of framing it, he actually just adheres it to the wall, which is part of his whole bad boy printmaking practice.
And it's a woodcut, right?
Yeah.
Which is, to me, also really interesting because of the level of detail.
Yeah.
And sort of, intimacy of the detail he's getting in this work.
And I love that all three of these people are masters of their discipline, but at the same time, there's nothing old-fashioned about it. It's like John's taking printmaking, Jianan's taking bas-relief, and Dick's taking painting, and just, amping it up somehow, either through the color or just the technique.
And there's nothing like Dick Liu's color development. I mean, everybody, you can see in the studios when someone's taking his class because all of a sudden they start to get these luminous colors, going in their work. And in Jianan's work, I mean, I'm not used to seeing bas-reliefs that are actually chromatic like this. And so it's somewhere between a painting and a sculpture, and it's just so immediate and lovely.
And that's really one of the things that makes him unique, I think, as a bas-relief painter, is that he's equally skilled 2D and 3D. So you see him using materials like resins and acrylic paint, and he's as masterful as a sculptor as he is a painter and a draftsperson.
I agree. All right, let's go on to the next one. So Peter, this is a great group of paintings here. One thing that's interesting about all these artists, Zane York, Manu Saluja, and J.P. Roy, is they're all being featured in our Academy Everywhere videos. Manu's is already done. What I personally love about this is the range of painting here. We have, kind of a very interesting subject matter, but a very traditional approach to the portrait. So accurate, so lovely. And then we move up to Zane's, and it's almost got this, trompe-l'oeil feel to the still life, which is something he's really good at, and is also the subject of his upcoming film. And then the one you're standing in front of, J.P. Roy's here, I mean, it just always boggles my mind how he creates things out of his mind, and the color development and the worlds that he creates with that color development, to me, is just always, entrancing.
I think it's amazing that all three of them are teaching direct and indirect painting, but they're all so wildly different from each other. The fact that JP comes from a special effects world, that even as a kid he was interested in all of that sort of cinematic history, you can see it in his work, and the fact that he can work entirely from his imagination, that he doesn't need any references at all. And then Zane, he addresses those traditions, but at the same time he's changing them by making the butterflies be a part of the flower arrangement. And I love the fact that Manu Saluja's work is as traditional as it is, and at the same time it feels utterly contemporary.
So now we're standing in front of this painting by Marshall Jones, and I really love this. First of all, it's just masterful in its treatment of the skin, particularly where it gets both the expansion of the cheeks and then the wrinkles around the eyes. And just subject matter-wise, it kind of reminds me of the Chardin, bubble blower painting.
Yeah. I love it, the fact that it's one of our models that's been working at the school for years now. She sort of goes by Brooklyn Betty, but everybody loves painting her. She's got such an unusual character. And I love the fact that there's all this incredibly complicated temperature shift that just happens in the shadow masses. And that just takes, you can't do that directly. You've got to do layers and layers of paint to get there.
I also really like the compositional balance between what's very intricately described and then these portions where it's just almost implied.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. really economical.
So this is a drawing by Dan Thompson, who is the chair of our faculty for the CFA department. And it shows what a remarkable education you can get by going to the CFA program.
One of the things that I love about Dan Thompson's drawings is what we refer to as searching lines. Like he just is constantly going around the model, just finding little points of departure, and then eventually it's almost like watching an oculus close. He gets more and more, not detailed necessarily, but more specific in his observations as the drawing develops.
The thing I love about that is that person is present. It feels alive when you look at that because none of it is locked down. It almost feels like she's in movement, even though it's a static image on the wall.
That's really true. In some ways it makes it both open form and closed form, which is a really unusual combination.
I agree.
This is a new faculty member, Scott Hunt. He's teaching in the drawing department for the first time, and he just fits in perfectly. He's one of these people who has remarkable technical skill, but also is making very progressive representational and figurative art.
I was talking to Scott last night at the opening, and I first of all, it took me a while to see the rat in here, but what I just love about this work is the amount of rendering and information and just perfect balance in the form, and the fact that it's situated in just a white space.
So iconic.
Yeah, and exactly, it makes it iconic and contemporary, but it's using this incredible traditional skill to make its point.
I also think it's interesting that it sort of hints at Robert Longo's Men in the Cities without being overtly.
Yeah, I guess, all the white space.
Yeah. So this is a piece by Colette Robbins, who is an incredible artist, but also has been focusing on digital art making. So she does a digital sculpture and 3D and 2D course at the Academy. So this piece is largely printed, but it's also got so many other analog aspects to it. The painting of it, the superstructure of it, it's really that perfect combination of digital and analog sculpting.
You know what really excites me about this in relation to the school is it, to me, as much as anything here, talks about the use and the foundation conceptually of sort of skills, and then translating that into like a contemporary interpretation, usage, production, the whole thing. Yeah. I love that.
Well, in a weird way, it's got a weird analog association. If you think about somebody like Vermeer using the camera obscura, he was using whatever tool was necessary to get the work done, and I think that's what Colette's doing too.
Here's to that. Peter, you have to talk to us about this piece. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. It's by Gianluca Gerzo, and he's been running our stone carving class for the past few years. And he really has become a master at stone carving. And one of the things that's curious about that is that even though we have pneumatic tools available to our students to do stone carving, he chooses to work entirely with hand carving tools. So it's incredibly traditional on a certain level, but at the same time, you know that face is contemporary.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that, and it's amazing just also how soft it looks, even though it's marble. It's a great counterpoint to this piece here by John Bellardo. And there is so much going on here. You could talk about just every inch of it, from the anatomical to the textures to the fabric. It is a really remarkable piece.
Well, in the second year, this is actually Sculpture 3, which is a multi-figure composition. And John is a master of that. It's almost like this totally Baroque Bernini kind of like swirling of action. And he's made so many multi-figure compositions, but every one of them is just strikingly different. So one of the things that's really remarkable about our stone carving class is that we also have a residency in Carrara, Italy, where we send 2 students every year. And it's all funded by our trustee, Jonathan Tibbett and ABC Stone. And for many of the students, it's the first time that they've carved stone, and it's in the exact same quarry as Michelangelo and Bernini got their stones from.
I want to be a student again.
Yeah, I know. I'd love to carve stone.
So this is an artist I really love. It's Alexi Worth, and he's one of our senior critics at the school. And he does most of his work with an airbrush. And I love this almost cut out feel of it. You know, of course it reminds you of something like Matisse or whatever, but it's so, also the combination of everyday objects, random everyday objects, but you know, compiled into an almost a sculptural form.
Yeah.
I can look at these things forever.
It looks like a totem to me, and it's so funny that the title of the piece is Staple Gun and Whisk. It's like, who makes a painting about a staple gun and a whisk? But it also feels weirdly photographic to me because using that stencil and shifting it just slightly gives this blur that makes it feel like it's almost solarized.
One of the other things that's interesting to me in this work is the sort of temperature shifts around the edges. And to me that really enlivens and activates the image.
This is really one of my favorite pieces in the show by Eric Fishel, and it's so in keeping with his whole tradition of working with suburban imagery and a world that we're all familiar with, but also has a kind of darker underbelly that's suggested but never hitting you over the head.
Again, for me, you know, the inclusion of this and particularly hanging it next to Alexi's, you know, also puts in mind immediately the dialogue of you know, the variety of influences, the variety of approaches, the variety of interpretations that are resident within the teachers at the school.
And I love the fact that they're both using some aspect of photographic realism, but have nothing to do with each other.
Yeah.
Just remarkable.
I'm always drawn into Eric's work, you know, more than anybody. He's a true storyteller and a narrative, you know, painter. And whenever I'm looking at them, I'm always trying to figure out what is really happening here.
Yeah, I love the fact that he frequently uses video footage instead of still photography, because that gives that sense of movement and that the narrative is continuing somehow.
Okay, so just on the other side of Eric's is a painting by Melanie Vogt, who graduated from the school and also teaches at the school. And you know, she is just a mystery wrapped in a riddle in her paintings. They're so finely drawn and painted, and there's always, you know, you're never quite sure, again, what's going on in these. What do you think, Peter?
Part of what always strikes me about her work is it's so beautifully rendered, but it's also weirdly funny. Like, who does a painting about sneakers and socks?
And Snoopy socks.
It just doesn't occur to me. I would never even think that way.
Yeah, I agree. There is always a kind of humor in them,
Yeah.
and I just really respond to this.
Another thing that I love about Melanie's work is just that everything is in focus, and that's what gives it its magic realist quality. So everything, you don't see anything like depth of field, you just see this absolutely precisionist approach to painting.
Peter, I just find this bust by Heather Personnet, who was a graduate of the school and now teaches, you know, life sculpting at the school. I just find this so beautiful. I look at this, I love the way the light bounces off the patina. I love the combination of a kind of loose surface, but with incredibly accurate, you know, precise anatomical placement, and I just want to know this person.
Yeah.
When I look at it.
And you get the sense that she knew the person. Like, it's not just an observation of an object, it's a real perception of a human being.
There's also a sense of movement in this, even though it's a sculpture, and I couldn't be more engaged by it.
I agree. All right, so this is a piece by Cynthia Early, who's been a faculty member for years at the Academy, and she's known as one of the best anatomists at the school, but she's also a well-known sculptor in her own right. And I love the playfulness of this weird headdress that there's almost no explanation for it. It feels very futuristic in a way, and at the same time almost naturalistic.
I love Cynthia's work. There's always this combination of human and animal in them, and I have a little one of hers that's about 4 inches tall that sits on my desk at home. It's a couple embracing, and the woman is looking up at the man, and she's got these incredible long antlers coming out of the back of her head, and it's mysterious and wonderful. I just love it. I'm excited to show the next grouping of 3 paintings here. It starts with Will Cotton, who's a senior critic at the school. I actually had him for a whole painting class when I was in school. I mean, he works with the, his subject matter of candy and pastries and cakes, and he makes these worlds out of them. And I haven't eaten breakfast yet, so this one's just making me hungry.
I love the fact that it's a peanut brittle house with a sponge peanut door. It's just everything about it is playful and strange and surreal, but at the same time believable.
Totally believable. You feel like you could walk right into it.
Yeah. So this is a piece by Michael Grimaldi, who's the director of our drawing department. And he's one of those people that makes drawing just seem like an absolutely primary creative project. Like there's nothing about this that feels preparatory in any way. And he uses so many different materials, chalk, graphite, charcoal, and people don't realize this, but also alcohol to actually make some of the surfaces more painterly.
Oh, so he's applying it rather than drinking it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably that too.
I love this work. To me, it's one of the standouts of the show. And, the sense of light he gets into his drawings, which are always kind of set in these almost sort of dark and gloomy atmospheres, murky, just adds to the intrigue of the whole thing and focuses you on what, is the central proposition of the drawing each time.
And it's so funny too, because you don't notice things like this little bit of warmth that happens in the knees, and there seems to be no explanation for it, but you also can't imagine the painting without it.
I agree, it's perfect.
So one of the things that I love about this drawing is Michael took one of the shittiest casts that we've got in our collection and made something remarkable out of it.
That's what's great about art school. You never know what's going to, turn into material.
Right.
And this is a work by Margaret Boland, who is an amazing painter and also a very skilled draftsman, especially with pastels. And it's so intimate, it's so expressive, it's so, there's just a world in this child's eyes. And one of my favorite things about Margaret as a painter is the way she talks about painting. And, I can listen to her interpret and talk about other people's work for hours because she just gets so descriptive and romantic and adventurous in everything she's saying, and it's so imbued with passion. It's just a lovely experience to watch.
That's a really wonderful thing to say, David, because I think people don't realize how rare it is for somebody to be this talented and this creative and at the same time to invest themselves so completely in other people's work.
Yep, and that is one of the things that Margaret really does, which adds so much to the community here. I love these two colorful sculptures, one by Judy Fox and the other by Nina Levy, who is the head of our sculpture department. And I'll start with Judy's. Her subject matter comes, out of her head, and she creates these incredible animals, and they always seem erotic and weird and wonderful and totally make sense.
And the funny thing about it too is that it was from an installation that she did at Nancy Hoffman Gallery about the Garden of Eden. So this is Judy's idea of Eden, the beauty of Eden, right? But what people don't realize is that the patination of this actually isn't a patina, it's her painting with casein paint on top of the fired clay, which is a really almost like a lost art. As David said, this is a piece by the director of the sculpture department, Nina Levy. And one of the things I love about it is, first of all, it's made with paper clay, so it's not even fired. So it's incredibly delicate on a certain level, and at the same time so playful. Like this just looks like a little baby in its little onesie. And then there's a box where its head should be.
It definitely gets the award for most weird and adorable at the same time. You just want to pick it up and cuddle it. Right. Exactly. So Peter, this is the first time we've done a show of this scale of the faculty, at least in a very long time. And for me, it really emphasizes, the talent and the inspiration that's here at the school. And I have to say, it just feels like a gift to work with these people day in and day out.
I just think this show is such an inspiration. There isn't a day that I walk through the studios and the classrooms where I'm not inspired by the faculty and the quality of the student work here. It's just a joy to be a part of this school.